Gabby said on breakfast he will, quote, wipe the floor with you.
No chance.
You're probably a bit lighter than Gabby, though.
Everyone's lighter than Gabby. The Pillsbury Doughboy's lighter than Gabby. And without acting as a Daniel Levy shill, which I'm accused of being, no, I'm not. I just understand the other side of the argument.
All right.
And I'm balanced in the middle of it. The things you can do is you can stop this crap.
Drives me mad.
I think it's a load of old fanny. You know, there's two kinds of people in this world. There's popular people and there's successful people. And it's amazing how popular you become when you're successful, right?
Danny Murphy is in our midst, and Simon, before I go any further, this a gift from Mar Hall, from the professional up there, Chris. I was up there, of course, at the Street Connect charity golf do. Danny's a big golf fan. We like his golfing knowledge, and this is a little presentation from the club to you, Danny Murphy.
Very, very nice. Thank you so much.
There you go.
Not very good with gifts.
Some nice golf balls. Would you like to make a speech? Are you fine with it? No, I mean,
that's really nice, really kind.
Lovely, mate.
Where's my gift? I do this bloody show and put up with you every single day. He comes in once a week.
I've actually got a little nine-hole competition this evening, so I might use one of them.
Good man, Danny. Good man.
What's his name, sorry, did you say?
That was Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
The golf pro up at Mar Hall on the outskirts of Glasgow. Beautiful, beautiful place. No, paddle tennis is your sport, not golf. And I believe you're playing Gabby Bonlaw or somebody later on.
I am playing...
Danny, incidentally, for the viewers on YouTube and your smart TV, only Simon could bring in the biggest sports bag you have ever seen, sitting to his left-hand side. Who are you playing?
I'm playing Gabby Bonlaw and Darren Bent. Darren Bent. Do you know how cameras work, Dan? There you go. Yeah.
Look at the thickness of it. He's got 5 rackets in there.
Because I have a propensity to hurl them at people.
So you're playing Gabby
and Darren. Yes, but they're the ones that called it on. Gabby's been giving it a big one for such a long time. I got him into a tournament the other day.
Yeah.
A tournament that I won a couple of years ago, and he came back with the MVP award, which means he didn't win, and someone gave him a pity. Whatever, right? And so the reality of it is they challenged me to a game, and they've arranged a partner for me, which means they've probably got a one-legged dwarf. And we'll see how we get on.
Right, okay.
So Gabby's already apparently, just on the way out, said to me he's taken tomorrow off.
Well, Gabby said on breakfast he will, quote, wipe the floor with you.
I've heard that. Well,
how's that fair if they pick your partner?
Exactly. I'm giving them all the advantage, and they're both 15, 20 years younger than me, so really and truly, as elite athletes, they should be able to
Well, you're like me in your 60s, so I mean,
I'm
I
nowhere
hope
near my
this goes
60s.
well.
I am nowhere near my 60s, and you're much nearer your 70s.
You're probably a bit lighter than Gabby, though.
Everyone's lighter than Gabby. The Pillsbury Doughboy's lighter than Gabby.
We will get the truth of who beat who in the paddle tennis challenge tomorrow morning, live at 10. You'll find out who beat who. Danny, now we know the fixtures for the opening day of the Premier League. It's quite incredible, isn't it? This is Wednesday, the 18th of June, but we know who is playing who. First up, Friday, the 15th of August, Liverpool up against Bournemouth. Then on Saturday, exclusive on talkSPORT, Aston Villa against Newcastle United. The new boys Sunderland are up against West Ham United. The new boys Burnley are at Tottenham. And then on the Sunday, Chelsea Palace, Manchester United Arsenal. How'd you like that? That gets us going. And then on Monday, the new boys Leeds United against Everton, and that is an exclusive on talkSPORT. I must admit, Dan, it whets the appetite. But when it boils down to it, what do you think the most intriguing story is going to be going into this? What intrigues you most going into a new season? Is it the fact that Manchester City will be back? Will Liverpool retain their title? What will Thomas Frank do at Spurs? How will the promoted sides do? What intrigues you?
Well, I'm always intrigued by the new players first and foremost. You know, how they fit in, what they bring, all those different things. That's the best thing from my job, my perspective. But I suppose the biggest story, really, you have to say, is Man U. Man U's the biggest story.
Really? Yeah.
Can he improve that team, that squad? Can they? Because that season was nothing short of woeful. So can they just improve and start climbing the ladder? They're not going to compete for the title, obviously. But I think with the size of the club, the money they're going to spend, that's got to be the story.
Yeah. I mean, there are the fixtures, the opening day fixtures, if you're watching on YouTube and your smart TV outlined for you there.
Do you know what people do when they see the fixtures? They always think, they start looking at 3 or 4 and think, we'll have 9 points, we'll have 12 points.
Yeah.
Do you know how many seasons I've started thinking the same thing as a player, because you used to get excited? And then you lose to the team you like. I remember losing at Hull opening day with Fulham, thinking we go up there and spank them. Got done in the last minute. Then we had Arsenal at home next, thinking they'd give us an hide, and we beat them. There's no rhyme or reason at the beginning.
No, the way you think, yeah.
No.
From the outset. I think the answer to the question is, where is there not an intriguing story?
Yeah.
Look around the league. Look at all the teams that are in there.
Go
look
on,
at
Simon.
Look at Newcastle.
Yeah.
Newcastle now in the Champions League. They've got the spending restrictions probably back into play now, and they can probably go again hard. So are they going to push further up the league? You've got the Man United story.
Yeah.
You've got Palace and Glasgow. They're going into Europe. They'll square their proper circle now. Then you've got the promoted sides. You know, you've got Sunderland and Burnleys of the world that are coming up, and obviously Leeds United. You look around at Spurs, and you make the point yourself with Thomas Frank.
Yeah.
You look at Aston Villa. Are they going to go again? What's going to happen there? You look at Man City and their rebuild. You look at Arsenal buying this centre forward for 80-odd million quid that scores 97 goals in 102 games. Is he going to be the key component to take them from perennial challengers
They haven't
to
signed one
winners?
yet, have they?
Well, they're on the cusp apparently of doing it. So this is make the assumption.
Sure
that
thing. Winners
So
are
you
not
look
an
at- so
intriguing
you-
story.
Simon's turned into Alex Crook. He's giving us transfer news.
I know, I love it.
But you look at it and say, in all honesty, where is there not an intriguing story?
Yeah, I tell you what we need though, Simon. Jeopardy. With
there's loads of
a
it.
title
There's
race
loads of
and
it.
a relegation battle wrapped up weeks before the end of last season, Danny. Jeopardy is what we need, don't we? Going into the final stages.
But you could hang on. I
It's
mean,
what we enjoy.
But we still,
Yeah.
we saw certain aspects of Jeopardy determining the relegation and the winning of the league. But there was a whole bucket load of Jeopardy everywhere else about teams that were trying to get into the top 6, teams that were trying to get inside the top 5, teams that were going to qualify for a conference, teams that were going to play in FA Cup finals, teams that were going to play in Europa Cup finals.
Yeah, but I think
we had
Jim-
a whole raft of
I
Jeopardy
think
there.
Jim's right. In the Premier League, I think if there's more jeopardy at the bottom and a bit more at the top, it does make it that little bit more exciting.
What, to win the league?
Both.
Yeah, I agreed.
You know,
It's a component part.
those titanic tussles between Liverpool and Man City when Klopp and Guardiola were going head for head to the last day of the
But that's
season.
not-
It was so engaging. It was like, is anyone going to slip up? Every week, it's just got, you know,
Yeah.
you've got two games.
top and bottom was sorted by
I hear
April,
that,
Simon.
but we, and I hear that, but more often than not, you're talking about two teams trying to win the league.
Yeah.
We had about 7 teams trying to compete for something meaningful, rather than
Top 5.
the top 5 or whatever they think
Yeah,
is
I
meaningful.
enjoyed that, yeah.
So it all had jeopardy. I think that we are in danger of suggesting that because there was a foregone conclusion in winning the league, and we've seen the league won by massive points many times before.
Well, it
Man City
normally is.
dominating it.
The percentages is actually that one team wins it by quite a way most seasons.
Yeah.
So I was looking at that
Yeah.
at the end of last season. We don't often get head-to-head going right to the end. It doesn't. It's not.
No.
It's not the norm.
Yeah.
But it would
But
be
we don't
nice.
want the 3 coming up, going straight back down again, though, Danny. That's what we've got used
What
to.
if they're not good enough? They're not good enough.
I know, but we want a fight. We want
But
5 or 6 of them trying to avoid the
season.
draw.
Look what we had last season. Nobody picked Liverpool to do what they did.
No.
Nobody picked 2 teams that have not won competitions in the last 50 years, and one of them never, to win the League Cup and the FA Cup.
Nobody really thought Tottenham. would
Nobody
actually.
thought Tottenham would finish 17th in the league and ultimately win a Europa League competition. I mean, you have
Nobody had
got,
PSG winning the Champions
you've got
League.
stack loads of intrigue there.
I mean,
Stack loads.
it can't be the answer though, Simon. They've just got to be good enough when they come up. I mean, are we looking?
They do.
Are we looking at a format change then? The Women's Super League has confirmed new format changes, including an expansion from 12 to 14 teams, but the introduction of a promotion relegation playoff. Now, how about that? How about that?
Well, the argument that you're making is because we've seen in recent times there's been 3 up, 3 down.
Yeah.
And we've seen prior
Last
to that,
3 seasons.
but we've seen Bournemouth stay up recently. We've seen Sheffield United stay up recently. Okay,
Forest.
they went back down again. We've seen Forest come back into the league after 23 years. I don't think the system is broke, so I don't think it needs to be fixed. I'm always for sophistication because if you don't evolve, you die. But the point is that it is a case of you've got to be good enough.
The big problem.
You have to be pragmatic, and that's why I like Scott Parker at Burnley and think he's got a chance, because if you come up conceding 14, 15 goals in the season,
Got a
your
chance.
fundamentals are right.
But if that new format, you've got the playoffs in the Championship.
Yeah.
So if you had the 2 come up and then a 1 through the playoff, as normally is in the Championship,
Right.
if you replace the playoffs in the Championship and use the 3rd place to play the 3rd from bottom in the Prem, which I'm assuming that's what
That's
they're
what we're
saying,
meaning. Yes.
then you lose all that jeopardy for a third of the season in the Championship of
Correct.
trying to fight for the.
So the Premier League wins out of this, because ultimately one of the Premier League sides that would automatically get relegated might get another chance of
Yeah.
staying in the division. So they're all
What
right,
about
Jack.
a playoff between 17th and 18th? That would work. Simon, if we're in the same situation in April, that the 3 who came up are heading back down,
that would
we'll
work.
be like,
So
jeopardy.
You've got no chance. So
that would be 4 seasons in a
You've
row.
got no chance. No chance. So you're basically expanding the level of relegation possibilities by another 10%. Right? So you're going to ask the Premier League to vote for a change which says the fourth and bottom team can get sucked into
You
relegation.
either want jeopardy or you don't,
finish-
Simon.
Well, I think we
If
have
the
got
same
jeopardy.
three go down that came up this season,
Then they have to be better.
it's easy to say that.
Well, it's easy to say that, but the reality of it is you're going into an elite league. The things you can do is you can stop this crap around carrying up the losses from the championship, so you have less of an opportunity to compete, so you can spend more money. You can get rid of that crap so that people can actually compete properly rather than being sanctioned for having far less ability to spend money than established Premier League clubs.
That's
You can get
actually
rid
a
of that.
brilliant point because, you know, when Forest came up and tried, then they got penalised.
They got kneecaps.
The problem is, though, Danny, half the Premier League's in Europe next season. The gap's getting bigger and bigger
Well,
and
that'll help
bigger.
the relegated sides then, won't it? Because they've got more games to play, more challenges on different fronts.
I'm flying at this at the moment, and I want Danny's take on this because I'm not happy yet. I want to get this from you. Which managers, Dan, need to hit the ground running from the off? I'll throw in mine, right?
Yeah.
Graham Potter at West Ham. They have to hit the ground running because he is in for it from those Hammers fans when you get to the turn of the year. If they're right down there, 16, 17, 17, 16, he will be copping for it.
I hear you, but if he's not backed in the market, I think the fans would probably be a little bit more forgiving. I mean, no, but more so than if he goes and spends a load and then they start badly. But yeah, I hear you. I think that's a fair one. Amorim,
yeah.
he's
It comes back to Manchester
Thomas
United.
Frank will have a couple of months to bed in and work his stuff. You can't. You've got to give every manager a bit.
It's a sort of reverse question, is it? Which manager will be given latitude if he starts badly?
Yeah.
Which of the 20 managers is going to be given latitude and dispensation if they start badly?
Question. Yeah. Do you agree with Dan? Manchester United, the most intriguing story.
I think
Amorim.
I think the other one, if you look at, and I really don't think he should be, by the way, because I think he's done a terrific job, irrelevant to the lack of trophies.
Yeah.
I think Arsenal's start looks quite difficult.
Yeah.
If Arsenal start badly,
Yeah.
there's going to be some grumblings.
Well, they're at Manchester United on day one. They're up against Liverpool on the 30th of August. So you're right, Danny. Arsenal could well be a story in there. I'll put it out there as we approach the first break. What is the most intriguing story as we look ahead to another Premier League season? Albeit we're in June, but what to you would be the most intriguing story? Is it Manchester United, as Danny suggests, for a variety of reasons? Is it Amorim holding on? And he will be holding on, only just if they start the way they finished, that is for sure. Is it City back? Is it Liverpool going for another title, retaining the title they won? Is it Thomas Frank at Spurs? Is it the promoted sides? The Premier League party gets underway soon. Opening day, Friday night, August the 15th. Liverpool up against Bournemouth. Bournemouth fans actually agreeing with Danny. There's Simon, who's a Bournemouth fan. Danny's right. Don't think we're going to get much at Liverpool on day one. We finish away too. No festive home games, and our Everton trip is midweek as well. I'm sure the Premier League love us, really. Bournemouth fans maybe not getting a fair crack of the whip.
I think this season with the more games televised on different days and different times, you're going to have more frustration from the fans across the board.
Yeah. What are you on about? This is exactly what I said
I made
moments
the point,
ago.
and I was sort of ignored when I said poor Bournemouth fans schlepping. If it was the other way around, there'd be a complaint.
Yeah. You were ignored, were you?
Kind of. I was dismissed.
Dismissed.
What do you know? Go away.
Thanks very much indeed.
You're used to that, though.
Tottenham chairman Daniel Levy. We were waiting for this and he's done it. He's spoken for the first time about what happened regards Ange, what might happen going forward, Thomas Frank, etc, etc. Daniel Levy did this, maybe predictably enough, with the club's in-house channel. He explained his reasoning for sacking Ange Postecoglou and what his ambitions are for the football club.
I'm very grateful to Ange. I don't regret appointing Ange. In his first season we finished fifth, and in our second season we were over the moon to win a trophy. But we need to compete in all competitions, and we felt that we needed a change. I've got an excellent relationship with him. I told him you're always going to be part of our history. Himself and his family are always welcome back. It was a collective decision. It wasn't my decision. We do everything together. Emotionally it was difficult, but we believe we've made the right decision for the club. We've won a European trophy. It's not enough. It's what we haven't done that is more important. We need to win the league. We want to win the Premier League. We want to win the Champions League. We want to win.
We want to win the Premier League, and the Champions League as well. I mean, Simon, are goals and aims pointless without a realistic direction of achieving them?
Well, if you make those sort of claims, you're going to have to support them with the economics that will enable you to do that. He's not silly and deaf and blind, is he? He knows that in order to win something, you've got to compete economically to be able to do it. So if he gives somebody 50 million quid and asks them to win the Premier League, he's going to be laughed out the door, isn't he? So there was an element of the Spurs fans should think this is manna from heaven. Okay then, Mr. Chairman, you make these claims. I'm assuming that you're going to support the managers to that end.
Well, Mbeumo's a big kind of example, maybe. Because obviously he's got the relationship with Thomas Frank and the reports, and it's only reports, so you never know. But Man U are willing to pay him over 200 grand a week.
Well, this is the challenge, isn't it?
And nobody at Tottenham earns that. So
yeah, but is Mbeumo going to take you to the title?
Well, he's just part of a bigger piece. That if you're wanting to be competitive and be at the top, you're going to need a group of really good players. And last season he was one of the best forwards in the Prem. So let's say they are targeting him. Can they compete with Man United, who are going to pay him more? The question at the moment, the answer at the moment is no, they don't, unless they decide to break that wage structure.
See, a lot of fans, Tottenham fans, Simon, think that Daniel's only a man of, let's get qualified. Qualification, that's what we want, qualification. Does he not show there that he is indeed a man of huge ambition? Want to win the Premier League and the Champions League?
Well, I don't think without acting as a Daniel Levy shill, which I'm accused of being,
No,
I'm not. I just understand the other side of the arguments.
All right.
And I'm balanced in the middle of it. I've regularly criticised Daniel. When I was in football, I had real battles with Daniel about players who tried to pinch from me. But the fact of the matter is, it's not a lack of ambition, it's a lack of ability to do things economically. People are not interested in that. They're only interested in what Man United do financially, or what Manchester City are able to do given their ownership model, and what other clubs may be able to do. It took Stan Kroenke a long time to get his arse in gear and decide to spend a lot of money at Arsenal. And now that he has, they've got going because they've paid for their stadium, and all of a sudden they're spending money and competing at the top end of the pyramid. The one thing that Spurs have got to do is perhaps accept the fact they can't run on a 45% wage ratio to turnover. Wonderful business acumen. And beautifully aligned in terms of the economics of your football club, but you were a tiny hair away from everything being unwound because you didn't have any of the projections in place that would have ever forecast you finishing 17th in the league and winning nothing.
Well, what's a realistic increase on that for them, do you think, to make it?
I think it's more complicated than just saying what's a realistic increase, because I think they have certain things in place that nobody's interested in hearing, which are banking covenants and restrictions. And people say, well, you built a stadium, you told us it was going to get better. They are spending money. The question is, what are they buying with their money? I look at some of the transfers that they buy, and I think, how are you going to win things signing certain players?
Yeah.
You know, how are you going to win things when you sign Timo Werner on loan? I mean,
well, they've just signed Tell, haven't they? They've made that deal permanent.
He weren't great,
this is my point.
But if they've got restrictions,
he's a talent and he's got ability.
If they've got restrictions, they're not going to win the title.
They'll have to renegotiate their position, won't they? And maybe some of that's moved away, and maybe some of those restrictions are adjustable by how they deal with their debt. The fact of the matter is, he's made statements. I don't know. I mean, people keep asking when this interview with Levy comes out that I've done. It'll come out soon because the TV show goes on Channel 4. The fact of the matter is, he has shown ambition to people privately, and people would suggest that spending 500 or 600 million quid net over the last few years illustrates the level of ambition. He doesn't want to run a football club in a way like the Middle Eastern guys do, where the consequences of it not being able to be funded are not a concern to them because they can fund it. Joe Lewis doesn't want to put any more money in. He doesn't have the prerequisite finance himself. The only choice is, do you allow Daniel to keep running a successful business and build towards something in the end that maybe wins something like you've done last year, or do you sell it to someone else?
In the current landscape, they're miles off winning the Premier League, aren't they?
Well, inevitably they finished 17th. So
why is he saying it?
What else? I was thinking that when I listened to it. Where else does he go?
This is Danny.
But let's say he gives a really honest
Tottenham
answer.
fans won't buy into that.
But what if he's damned if he does and damned if he doesn't? Because if he says, look, we finished 17th, we've got a bit of work to do on, we've got to let Thomas come in and bring some players.
They're not going to have it. They're going to say, what are you doing that for?
And if he says top 5, we go, well, there's us in a nutshell. That's Tottenham in a nutshell.
Yeah. So he has to say.
I honestly think Tottenham fans would accept that more than we're going to win the Premier League and the Champions League.
No, they won't.
He didn't say we're going to.
He said we want to win the Premier League, and we want. Well, I'm sure you do.
They won't, because it gives them a real bat to swing at him. If you want to win the Premier League and you want to win the big baubles, you are going to have to match those that are doing it already. So there's no good you saying it, Daniel. You're going to have to don't watch what I say, watch what I do. And with Daniel saying
let's not forget, they were a game away from winning the Champions League under Poch by not spending a fortune. So there's probably still a belief.
And then the big argument reverberates that actually they should have gone on from that and kicked off, and they didn't.
They should have.
He did say there to his own club channel, to his own fans, we want to win the Premier League, we want to win the Champions League. So this was then put to him. And have a listen. Is Thomas Frank an appointment that matches those kind of stated aims? This is Levy.
You know, whenever you have a new coach, it's always a fresh start. You know, always have different ideas. But, you know, we want to build on the success of winning a trophy last season. I mean, one of the things that stood out to me with Thomas, clearly highly intelligent, great communicator, superhuman being, plus all the other technical aspects that are obviously important. But, you know, they really stood out to me in those 2 parts.
Is that going to take them in the direction in which they want to go? I mean, what can he do? What can he realistically do in his first season, Thomas Frank?
I think Thomas Frank has proven that he can exceed expectation and improve players, and collectively and as a group and individually.
Can he compete with Pep? Can he compete with Slot?
With the current squad, no. He's going to have to be backed and be really cute and clever in the market and bring in some really good players. They're a bit off that, and I don't think his remit this season is to be competing with Slot and Pep. Champions League is always where clubs like Tottenham at the moment would want to be, but that's going to be a challenge. You've got to let him get in the door. You've got to let him work his magic, just build integrate players in.
Works, so is it? Otherwise,
well, I think it is. I think if.
But you know, with this current
Tottenham
squad,
don't get rid of managers really quickly.
With the current Tottenham squad, Dan,
got levied out the door pretty quick, didn't he?
Did they end up where they deserved to end up with this current Tottenham squad? 17th.
You always end up where you deserve to end up. They ended up where they should.
Are they better than 17th?
So much better.
Absolutely.
That's why he's gone.
Absolutely.
Because all that nonsense about sacrificing the Premier League form for the Europa League, absolute nonsense. I saw all the team selections. I was doing the games every week. It was only the centre-halves he rested. Make no bones about that. In certain games, it was only the centre-halves he rested.
So does this current squad need much surgery?
Yeah, it needs a bit, yeah. It needs a bit of investment, yes. A bit more strength and depth, a bit more quality. Probably needs a few gone. I mean, if you think Romero making noises, I like him, but he's a bit of a liability. One's saying maybe Atletico. If he's doesn't really want to be there, let him go. Son's had his day, I think, who's been brilliant for the club. I think you need to maybe Bentancur, who's a good footballer, but has he got the legs or the energy that Thomas Frank wants in the middle of the park? You need to bring in some fresh players. So yeah, they need to.
I was thinking of having another swipe at James Maddison, and I thought better of it.
Probably not.
No, we like Maddison.
I know, I'm being facetious.
But Simon, so put it into perspective for us. You say 50 million. Yeah, Thomas Frank got really. Is that what you're throwing at me? Realistically,
he needs more than that.
Well, how much will they spend in this window, Tottenham?
Well, who knows? They've
already done 30 on a potential.
A damn sight more than they would have spent if they hadn't got into the Champions League this season. That's one thing you can legislate for. Then Thomas Frank would have nailed this down. You don't think Thomas Frank's going to go? Thomas Frank was being sought after. He didn't apply for the job. He was approached for the job, which puts him in a great negotiating position. Albeit he wants to step up and he wants to go to a bigger football club. He would have been saying to Tottenham Hotspur, I'm pretty sure, because he's not silly man, okay, what am I being supported with? What are you going to give me? So I would expect Spurs to continue with the spending pattern. What did they spend last year? 120 million quid?
I can't remember.
Well, they bought Solanke for 70 million quid, didn't they?
Yeah,
yeah. So they'll be in the north of a £100 million bracket, right? So I'd expect him, who's never had anything vaguely resembling that, a whiff of that, right? And let's be careful how we watch Thomas Frank in this position, because it's one thing having a data-driven model that Matthew Benham has programmed very well, and you fish in a certain pond, and then you work those players up and you polish them into the diamonds that they become, like Mbemo and Tony and whoever else and other players that have been there previously. But it's another thing when you go to the ready-made market and suddenly buy players at 30, 40, 50, 60 million pounds. Yeah. You'll see Thomas Frank evolving and learning on the job as well.
It's a Club World Cup, of course. Time to look ahead to that. Thanks to DAZN and Manchester City, Danny, in action tonight in a talkSPORT 2 exclusive up against the well-known Wydad Football Club. We'll get to the bottom of where they come from in a second. But in the meantime, Pep Guardiola has gone against his usual protocol by appointing Erling Haaland as one of his captains for next season. Guardiola, if you remember, usually allows players and staff to vote on a 5-man leadership group, but he's opted this time to take control, and he's doing it himself. This was Pep on why he's thrown in Haaland.
I'm the manager this season. For the first time in my career, I decided will be my captain. I didn't like what happened last season, and I decided this season who will represent the team. Sometimes I want to be the boss, and and this season I decided to do it. So I choose the 4 captains, and at the end of the tour, this World Cup, maybe we choose 1 or 2 more. First of all, he's so young, right? But he has to start to learn what does it mean to be a captain, because he will be here hopefully for many, many years, and that's why sooner or later he will take that position as the first one. And I think when you have Bernardo, you have Ruben, and have Rodri plus Gundogan, they have been an unbelievable captain for us in the year of the travel or the 2 seasons. He will learn, and especially I take it because he's incredibly respected. He's an important figure for us.
So Erling Haaland's one of his captains. Danny Murphy, of course, was a captain. Were you picked by the manager or were you picked by your teammates?
The manager.
Who was it?
Roy at Fulham. He just pulled me in one day, but I think I'm finding it a little bit bizarre that things have evolved so much where there's 3 and 4 captains. I mean, what load of nonsense. Leadership isn't about having the armband necessarily. There's always senior players in the group, core group, who carry the others and set the discipline and set the tone at training and pull people in. There's always a good group of senior players, but there needs to be one captain and maybe a vice. Maybe a vice. Even that's a little bit gesturing. I value you. You have the vice captaincy. There you go. When he's not playing, just have a captain and make your decision as a manager.
You think this is nonsense, is it?
I understand leadership groups or a group of players who the manager kind of pulls in 3 or 4, but then it goes to 5 and 4 and 5 players. It's like, have 2 or 3 represent the
one thing is democratic.
I think players
Stop sniggering. I'm coming your way in a minute.
I'm from an old school.
Get a camera on him.
It's democratic.
I'm from an old.
Are they going to have a vote whether they play or not then?
Go on,
I'm
Danny.
from an old school mentality where
we'll get to Paddle Boy in a minute.
The captain represents the group.
Yeah.
So he goes to the manager, and he, or the way he conducts himself, the way he is on the pitch, everything. You need to look up to the captain. Somebody you can go to, somebody you can look at and really thrive off. I've always felt that it was a big thing in football. I think it's been devalued. I'm sick of seeing armbands passed in games. Here you go, you're coming on, it's yours. Oh no, it's yours. You can get 3 or 4.
Has it been devalued? Has it been destroyed by the demands of society? What's the biggest thing we think we're missing in society in this day and age? More often than not, some people would say empathy. Leadership. Yeah. Right. So we acknowledge the fact that we are missing leadership now, but we're expanding what we think leadership looks like. The reality of it is that there are only a few leaders, and that's why they separate themselves from the pack. And it certainly is not amongst the people that are being defined as leaders to choose who their leaders might be. No. It's the manager and the decision makers imbue the authority. The players more often than not are not leaders. That's why we're constantly complaining about the idea that we're lacking leadership in society. I'm loath to argue with Pep Guardiola because you can't argue with a man's record. But when I listen to these leadership groups, I think it's a load of old fanny. Yeah, I really do. I think people ultimately, it's one thing making people more responsible. It's making people accountable, wanting people to be indexed to what they want to do, so they're really committed to the cause. But to have
Did you have a leadership group at Palace?
Of course I didn't. Of course I didn't.
Where you have the dictator.
You have leading figures. Yeah. There's one rule, and it's the rule that I decided, and ultimately underneath that, people implement my wishes in their own style.
I've tried to be more diplomatic with my answer, but I think we're singing from the same hymn sheet. Leadership groups per se drives me mad.
So has Pep got this wrong the last few seasons then?
Well, I think what he's saying is last season I let the players decide, and that's not happening again. I don't know what he's done seasons before, so I'd have to look back and see. But if you look,
he's done the same.
Leadership. The problem is with young footballers, and I was one of them. Or footballers per se, you're always learning. Generally, you start your career a bit self-indulgent and arrogant and cocky,
institutionalised,
to a degree, and then you evolve as you go through.
Then you become greedy and outrageous.
To think you can have a group of footballers nominating their own leader seems somewhat bizarre.
Yeah.
When they're actually on the journey themselves.
Yeah.
So the leader is the manager.
Listen, you'll know the answer to this. Is Erling Haaland captain material?
No, not yet. I don't see that at all.
Why?
Well, he plays up front, which is hard enough. He doesn't seem particularly demonstrative or verbally constructive, let's say.
Kane was a captain.
Who?
Kane.
Yeah, and I don't think he should have been.
So it's a no to Haaland?
I don't think with all the quality and leadership they've got at Man City and all Bernardo Silva, for example, Rodri. You know, I mean, even Rodri, he plays more by example than. I don't think he's a rocket. He doesn't go after people. When I think of Paul Ince, my captain of Liverpool.
Vincent Kompany.
So what did you bring to captaincy that Haaland needs to bring?
Well, it's very difficult for Haaland because he plays so high up the pitch and so far away from everything going on that even if he had those qualities, they're hard to empower onto others when you're so far away from it.
Does position really come into it?
I think it does.
He's not the other side of the mountain. He's there.
In my personal experience, you can benefit other players as a captain being more involved. So centre back, centre mid, and you can move up the pit and you can dictate.
Isn't the makeup of those sort of positions gives you a different character in the first place?
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah,
very much.
Which lends itself to leadership more.
But I think the key to captaincy is knowing when to kick people, knowing who and when to kick people on the backside, and knowing when to support them.
Yeah,
that's the simplest way.
It is.
On the pitch, anyway.
I'd love to have seen the way you went about it at Palace. It's all about give and take.
Fair.
You give and I take.
But now just finish on this.
Go on, Dan.
I think when we look back, how many now have we got? When you mentioned Kompany, I mean JT, Stevie G, Keno, Incy, people.
They're as rare as rocking horse now, aren't they?
I think so. Yeah. They're rarer. I mean, you go back to your centre. I mean, you've named so many captains.
And that's why they're special.
You need to show that you're captain. I mean, did you have anyone up against a wall? Like,
no, I didn't need to go. I don't. And I remember Incy had me up against.
But the game has changed. The game has changed. The physicality of the game has gone out. So we've insulated the game. We've homogenised it into a certain outlook and sanitised it.
Yeah.
And so we discourage leadership because leaders are naturally. The first thing you hear when you say leadership, he's a bit aggressive. No, he's not. He's assertive. But aggressive is a way to diminish people because it makes you look like you're one-dimensional. You need those characteristics. You need to be strong. You need to have... there's two kinds of people in this world. There's popular people and there's successful people. And it's amazing how popular you become when you're successful, right?
Pep Guardiola, of course, out in the US for the Club World Cup, in action tonight, City, as I said. He was asked straight, where is Jack Grealish? Why did you not bring him here? This was Pep.
Have a conversation between him and the club and decide the best. So Jack is an exceptional player. The only reason why he didn't play last season is, of course, of my decisions, and we decide that he has to play. And the club was honest, he's honest, so it's incredible respect and love for the teams, and we decide the best, is to stay and have a place like he can feel I can play, I can back to be like was the player that was in the year of the travel, all his career in Aston Villa, that without him would have been possible, or would have been more difficult to get what we achieved that year of the travel season. But the fact is the last 2 seasons he didn't play much minutes, and he has to come back to play and have the butterflies in his stomach that he can play every 3 days and show again the quality that he has.
I mean, he got there in the end, Pep, Simon, but clearly he's been out of favour for some time, and clearly Pep sees his future somewhere else.
You would think so. I mean, ultimately, it was very insightful to learn that he didn't play because of Pep's decisions, because I think we could have probably worked that out for ourselves, that he didn't play because of the decisions that Pep's made. It's very difficult to argue with any real veracity against Pep Guardiola because of the track record of the man. So everything he says, most football observers are going to tell us. If he says there's a leadership group, then what do you lot know? Right? There must be a leadership group that's worthwhile. Jack Grealish is on their books for 100 million quid. He's 4 years into a 6-year contract, so he's on their books at 40 million quid or 300 grand a week. Is he giving him a summer off from Manchester City to get himself together to be in the best possible condition to be able to lay claims to get him back in that Man City side, or is he talking him up in a press conference to make sure that people are prepared to pay for him in the summer when they're prepared to sell him? Only he and Man City know that. I can't read that room. I expect that Jack Grealish has run his course. The challenge for me is, where does he run his course to? Because I don't see where Jack Grealish is going to go.
What would they get from him now?
Well, it's not a case of what they can get from him. It's a case of how much he's prepared to accept in his wages that makes a transfer happen. Because it's one thing buying Jack Grealish. Everybody can buy Jack Grealish in the Premier League for 40 million quid. There's not one football club that couldn't buy Jack Grealish for 40 million quid in the Premier League.
Not many people spend 40 million on a 30-year-old.
But they can if they want to, is what I'm saying, right? But they're not going to want to pay 300 grand a week for his wages. And then you look at him and say, what can he do? Great player, talented player, not as good as I think people make him out to be, a never £100 million footballer. But that's just my opinion. But where does he go? Does he go to Newcastle? I think we've got a view on the fact that he probably couldn't cope with the way that Eddie Howe plays. Does he go to Tottenham, where Tottenham are going to pay his wages? Does he go back to Aston Villa? That's an emotional connection that is probably... Aston Villa aren't the same side that he left. So where does he go? To me, it looks like all roads lead to somewhere like Italy.
Why could he not cope at Newcastle?
Because they play with
It's
too
not
much
that he
intensity.
can't cope. I mean, he'd adapt, because Jack's one of those players, you can't get the ball off him. He's got this wonderful ability to keep the ball.
But they press differently.
But Newcastle are a dynamic team. Eddie plays high press, very transitional stuff at times. You know, that's not the way Jack plays.
Yeah.
Now, you could argue he could adapt, but he's just not that type. And I don't think Eddie would be looking to bring someone in who needs to adapt. He'll be looking for players who come in and just fit what he wants.
Especially that kind
Whereas
of player, that kind of money.
Jack had this brilliant season in the treble year, and he was outstanding. He worked well off the ball. He was great with it. But you've got to remember, this City side, generally at their best, dominate possession. And it's perfect for him, because he's brilliant at dominating the ball anyway.
I mean, Pep's saying we need that player from the treble year when he was at his height in his palm at Aston Villa. Where's that player gone, Danny? Can he get that back?
Well, I think yes, but you have to be given the platform. He's only made 7 starts in the Premier League last season. Now,
7.
Forget why, because obviously Pep sees him training all the time. He has conversations with him. He sees his dynamic with the group. So maybe Jack's not helped himself. I don't know, so I can't comment. The reality is, if you're going onto the pitch once every few weeks to try and play a game to impress the manager enough to play the next one, you know, the pressure gets more, and then your confidence drops when you dropped again and you dropped again.
Yeah. Do you think he's a Tuchel player? Do you think he's the sort of player that Tuchel would like? Because he's an ambitious lad. You know his father. Is he? I mean, ultimately, he's gone and played for the biggest club in English football in terms of achievements over the last 5 years. So there's a clear level of ambition. Yeah. But is he ambitious to want to play for his country in a World Cup that's coming up next year?
Yes.
So with that in mind, he can't muck about this season. He can't play 7 games.
No, I think he'll go.
So do you think that he's a Tuchel player?
I think Jack Grealish is best. Is anybody's player?
Is he?
Yeah, because he's got this. His unique talent is his strength and ability to keep the ball as he moves forward without losing. I mean, he does not lose the ball. He doesn't lose the ball. He's
Souness was very critical of him, wasn't he?
Pardon?
Souness was very critical of him.
Yeah. Because he said he takes too many touches.
Yeah.
Ultimately, Jack is judged now, like all the top forward players, on end product, and his end product's dropped off.
I think he'd do himself a big favour if he was to join McTominay and Gilmour at Napoli.
Possibly.
I mean, that would be the move.
The other option is, which is probably less preferable to him, is to go to I saw him link with Everton, for example, and be the big fish and the star and carry the team.
Is he a Moisey player? Well,
he's better than what Everton have got, let's put it that way.
Sure, but I mean, would Moisey put his hat on there?
What's the harder of the two sells, Danny? Grealish or Rashford?
How old's Rashford? Similar ages, yeah.
No, he's younger than 27, 28, yeah.
I think it's a problem because of Jack's age. So I think he's going to have to go on loan, whereas Rashford being a bit younger and a bit more dynamic. More teams play with dynamism than they do with possession. And Jackson needs to be in the team's possession, really. Hence the fact Napoli's probably a good shout because they've won.
And a total change. A total change to what he's been used to. Try that from a standing start. McTominay and Gilmour have benefited hugely from taking that.
And Conte's staying now, isn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, he's agreed to stay. So I mean, if he is going to go there, he's got to be ready for some hard work. But he's shown that he's capable of that anyway. It's not like it's a luxury. He does his defending. I mean, you've commented on it when you've seen him play.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, absolutely right. I agree with that. Yeah.
Jack will benefit somebody at his best.
Danny, just a few days ago, was it last week or the week before?
Last week.
There was no fence sitting whatsoever. You were absolutely brilliant. We asked Danny a range of questions. I made some short statements to which Danny either agreed, strongly agreed with, disagreed, or strongly disagreed with. So today, in the hot seat, you've guessed it, Lord Simon Jordan.
Thank God.
No fence sitting. We have a range of statements sent in from listeners.
Oh, can I just say one thing as well? To be fair to Simon.
Go on.
I did mine blind.
Yes.
Simon's doing his blind. When I mean blind, they haven't been...
You haven't seen them, have you?
They haven't been sent to you, have they?
No.
I don't read schedules.
No, he hasn't seen them.
No, I know, but...
They're sent in from the listeners, and Simon, all you've got to do is answer me when I put the points to you. You agree, you strongly agree, you disagree, you strongly disagree. We're ready for this.
Feels a bit... Ooh,
and if you like, you can explain your reasoning a bit.
Oh, thanks, mate.
No problem. I'm proud of my country. Agree, strongly agree, disagree, or strongly disagree?
Agree.
You agree. You're proud of your country.
I don't strongly agree because I think there's so many different facets of this country that irritate the living crap out of me.
Okay, like what?
Woke rubbish that people like you perpetuate at times.
You're a better broadcaster than you are an owner. Agree, strongly agree, disagree, or strongly disagree?
Disagree.
Okay. You're a better runner, in other words. Deep down, I have some admiration for Steve Parish. Agree, strongly agree, disagree, or strongly disagree? Steve Parish, of course, in charge at Crystal Palace.
Agree.
Oh, you do? You have
I think
some
to be
admiration.
as manipulative, disingenuous, as Machiavellian as that individual is, you've got to have some real talent. And to engineer circumstances where you get the best outcomes all the time, you've got to admire it. You might not like it, but you've got to admire it.
Well done. Andy Johnson was fairly average. Agree, strongly agree, disagree, or strongly disagree? Former player, of course, of yours.
Strongly disagree.
Strongly disagree.
So do I.
Yeah.
Why? Where was he? Was he?
Well, he wasn't average. Bringing average into the sentence of Andy Johnson is not a reasonable argument.
What was he?
If you said was he a top quality international player, I would say no.
Yeah.
But he certainly wasn't average in everything he applied himself to. He wasn't average in his performances with me at Crystal Palace. He wasn't average in his outlook and attitude. He wasn't average in his application to his chosen profession, and he wasn't average as a human being.
Correct.
So all of those things, lend me to strongly disagree with the principle of the question.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And thank you for your honesty.
You're welcome.
Boxing is barbaric for the 21st century and should be banned. Agree,
What a
strongly
ridiculous
agree,
question.
disagree, or strongly disagree? These are from listeners.
Disagree.
Disagree.
Yeah.
You don't think that boxing is barbaric?
No, I don't think it's barbaric. I think it's a sport that people go into with sound body and mind. I think there's certain aspects of the sport that can be done better. So that's why I don't strongly disagree with the principles of it's barbaric, and that's why I just disagree with it.
Do you think certain aspects of it could be improved, like safety aspects of it?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think the idea that you put Chris Eubank in against Conor Benn and the weight class differential and you drain somebody down to a level of weight to be able to make money, I think is wrong. But in of itself, I think it's the most noble sport of all the sports. I think it's the best sport of all of them. And if I ever had my time again economically that I once had, it would be boxing that I leant towards rather than football.
What do you mean noble?
What do you think I mean?
Well, noble. Like you describe it as.
Or do you agree? Strongly disagree?
Noble.
You agree? It's noble. It has more nobility. Look at the participants. Look at the protagonists. Look at the background they come from, and look what they do, and look at the honesty and integrity of it, and look at the things that they have to go through to achieve the things that they have to achieve.
Yeah.
So that's the reasons why I look at it that way.
Second last one. Paddle tennis will never go mainstream. Agree, strongly agree, disagree, or strongly disagree?
Agree.
Never go mainstream. That's interesting. Why?
Because I don't think it's as broadcastable as other sports. I think it's a participation sport. I think people will play it and you'll get enormous audiences playing it, participating in it. But to make it a broadcastable sport, squash was a brilliant sport. How much broadcast interest was in that?
Yeah.
Very difficult. It's a doubles game. You've got to get personalities out of it, but you've also got to get camera angles and the length of the game. So I think it's a brilliant participation sport.
Yeah.
And it will be enabled in lots of ways, but from a broadcast point of view, which catapults sports into the mainstream,
Yeah.
that's where it possibly falls down.
Got you. People like you play it, so it's a bit slower.
Is there going to be a
than other
difficult
sports.
question amongst this?
Um,
I thought these were difficult questions,
the
Luke.
final one. You can agree, strongly agree, disagree, or strongly disagree. No conferring.
I'm not conferring, I'm looking at a text message from Frank Warren.
Jim White, Danny Murphy, and Martin Keown save you regularly on talkSPORT. Agree, strongly agree, disagree, or strongly disagree?
Well, I can tell you that one thing that Martin Keown doesn't save me, he doesn't save my sanity. I don't think they save me, so I strongly disagree. I think I enjoy being on shows specifically with this man. Specifically with this man.
And of all the people like Danny, Martin O'Neill, Martin Keown,
Yeah.
Troy Deeney, Dara McCanty, of all of these people who we sometimes place you amongst, who do you enjoy being on with most?
Danny.
I'm here or not?
No, I'm just not. I think you know me better.
I
than
do,
that.
yeah,
I like
but-
Martin O'Neill
Yeah.
because I think Martin O'Neill challenges you intellectually and makes you think about things differently. Keown wears me out sometimes because I think it's point scoring, but I like Martin as a person. But as in enjoying company and listening to a football person talk about football, which I don't delve into too much, it's Danny Murphy.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Well done. Love all the questions of Simon there. Brilliant. And also love that referee as well, says Jill, one of our regular listeners.
Do you think all agents are scum? Agree? Disagree? Strongly disagree?
That would have been better. Jim, just so you
Work
know,
harder with these questions.
I'm doing the list for you next week.
Are you?
Oh, are you?
Are you?
Am I in the hot seat?
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Do
wow.
you think you're a woke wretch? Agree? Disagree? Strongly disagree?
Well done with that. You answered each and every one of them quickly and honestly.
I expected better questions.
Right.
Harder question.
Let's get to the real questions now. Okay, Simon, well done. Enjoy your paddle tennis.
Thank you.
Win.
Yeah,
You
good
cannot
luck.
come in here
Absolutely.
tomorrow having lost to
Absolutely.
Bonlover and Darren Bent. Chelsea host Crystal Palace on the first day. I wonder what Ryan, the Chelsea fan, thinks. Number one, Ryan, what's the most intriguing story to you? And number two, what manager needs to hit the ground running? Good morning, mate.
Morning. I think intriguing is obviously subjective because I'm a Chelsea fan. So
Yeah, yes.
for me, I think Maresca has to hit the ground running for me because there's only so long you can fall back on the excuse of having a young squad. We don't afford managers much time at Chelsea, as history will tell you that. And if he hasn't sorted out the goalkeeping situation, then I think...
Oh, we just lost him. He's saying Maresca.
He's back.
You back, Ryan? No.
Sorry, I think Maresca needs to sort the goalkeeping situation out.
Yeah.
If that's not sorted out, I think he could be looking at an early exit because, I think putting somebody who's busy up front who doesn't wear steel toe caps, which is good, that could help. But I think the goalkeeping situation is could be the death of Maresca if he doesn't get that sorted out.
Gee, and you're a Chelsea fan.
I'm a Chelsea fan, but there's only so long you can keep relying on the excuse of having a young team. He's going to have to hit the ground running in the league. Some of the results last season weren't good enough, and I just know, as Chelsea, we don't give many managers much time. So.
Okay, listen. Thanks for the points you've made, Paulie in Essex. Good morning to you, Paulie. I think we need to keep an eye on Newcastle this season. If they flex their financial muscle this summer, they could challenge for the title this time.
Which is what I said.
Which is what you said.
Which is what I said. Yeah. No, I don't think so either. I don't think so either. I think that's a slightly unfair characterisation. I've been defensive of Maresco and also condemnatory of him because I thought he was ridiculous in his observations when he was the one that was pouring cold water over his team in December. Then he criticised people for doing it. But the fact of the matter is Chelsea finished 2 points behind Man City, won the competition that they were competing in, and so I don't think Chelsea are going to win the league. But I think under Bowley, what they're looking for is a manager they can work with that's building towards something better.
Yeah, I think he's reasonably safe, but
I think he is as well.
I think you have to put it in
Unless
perspective.
he thinks it.
If you put it in perspective, they sneaked in, didn't they? And they've won a competition where they played nobody.